150, 160 is the average?
150 is.
Okay, but it doesn't kind of go from 120 to 200 at times, it sort of fluctuates.
Yep.
So it's kind of a peak load problem, and it's not like a hotel where you can kind of just keep it full all the time, you sort of wait till the demand is there. And I don't have the answer, so I guess I'm just asking, what is a practical number? Because, you know, let's say we build something for 150, there are going to be times when we need 170, 180, 200, but then it drops again and maybe it's down to 70. And, you know, should we just build something it has 195 beds, and then when it maxes out, well then we're to capacity, and then it drops down again to 100? Or would we save money by just building something that handles 150? But it seems what's being advocated is, let's build something, even if we're just going to meet our current need, our current maximum need, let's build something that'll handle 195. And then I guess it's reasonable to think, well, at some point the population is going to increase, and maybe the incarceration rates, even if they stay constant or go down, you know, we'll have this increasing population. So at some point we may need a few extra beds. I don't have an answer, just a question. How do you arrive at the 150? Do you think?
Well, I think we need to incarcerate fewer people, and I think, you know, I mean, I think we incarcerate too many people. I know you got these stats out showing that we're not as high as Uzbekistan and so forth, and but I think sending people to Muscatine there are real problems with that. There are real problems for the family, for the attorneys, and you know, since we've gotten to this point that we've got 150, I don't mind sending overflow to our fine neighboring jails. I mean, I think if we've got about 150, almost all of the jails around us are new because of this overbuilding and the crime wave boom of the last 30 years. They're actually good facilities. Some of them are sitting empty. There's a bidding war to get Johnson County prisoners going. But I just think it's inhumane to send people next door. And so there's some people I know who wouldn't support 150. There's some people I know who wouldn't support 50. And you know, I arrived at that figure because it's what we need. And I do not trust our police departments to not fill it up. If we build it, I think they will. And I'd be happy to be proven wrong and have empty beds sitting there if it gets built.
I think what the questioner was asking was a sort of a systems analysis, peak load mathematical question. In other words, do you want to have enough jail cells that you can handle everybody who you need or want to put in jail 365 days a year? Or is it enough that you have enough jail cells for 350 days a year or 300 days a year, and that you anticipate there will be some days when you don't have enough jail cells and you'll have to ship people out, but you want more jail cells than you would have if every day you're sending 70 people elsewhere, then presumably, obviously, you'd want to have more. At least I understood the question that way.
The fluctuation, according to Dave Wagner, is primarily due to football game weekends, and the current jail has a quite large cell for about 20 to 28 people on the first floor, which they don't fill, he tells me, with the exception of the 7 or 8 football weekends. And those people are maximum one night there and they go home. And that's what also creates then the fluctuation in the numbers that they quote. Because you have numbers quoted to you, 200. And then you have to ask, what weekend was that?
You know, in the 2000 referendum, the proposal that got 35% of the vote was for 330 beds. That was what it was. 30 of them were sort of bunk beds, but it was for 330. I mean, imagine how many people we would have in jail if we had built a 330-bed jail in 2000. I just...
Hello, I'm Peter Johnson. I'm a student here at the university. First of all, thank you to the panelists for supply more information on the issue. With all due respect, it's nice to see that we almost seem to all be in consensus of there needs to be an alternative to the current situation of the jail. What I'm not finding particularly attractive is this suggestion that a solution is non-enforcement of marijuana laws, because until it is enforced, it is a law and deserves to be enforced, because that is how we work. We elect legislatures to make laws for us, and judicial precedence requires us as law enforcement or as citizenry to enforce those laws. Basically, I was just going to ask, especially with reference to marijuana, why it seems to be a solution to not enforce a law to require less space in the jail.
I mean, my answer to that is not that they should never enforce this particular law. It's a question of where they put their priorities. You know, when you can't arrest everybody all the time for we're probably committing a crime right now. And you know, I mean, I know there's some people who want cameras that take pictures of everybody, and jaywalking is an automatic fine. But most people don't agree with that. And so the question is, where is the Iowa City Police Department and the DPS, where are they putting their money in terms of enforcement? You don't have to say, we will never enforce it if somebody comes wandering into the cop shop with a joint. I mean, that's a problem for our legislators. But what about garbage searches, knock and talks, and high priority anti-drug interdiction programs that are going on? I mean, I think there's room for some variation there in policies, and it's not just marijuana laws either. There are others where I think they could affect the arrest rate. People have, somebody referred to those of us who are opposed to the jail as magical thinking in a letter to the paper, but there's a certain amount of magical thinking going on by the jail advocates, which is the level of arrest don't seem to be related to the number of people we have in jail. You know, nobody's in jail unless they're arrested. And we have very severe marijuana laws in the state. It's very unusual for it not to be a simple misdemeanor. It's an indictable offense, and it's a serious misdemeanor. And you know, we've heard, you know, you talk about all the alternatives that have been considered. One alternative that hasn't been considered is for the county supervisors to go to the city and say, modify your policing policies. They can do that. They go to the city to argue with them about seats funding, right? And what about our legislators? They could go to, they say, oh, it's all the legislators and they can't do anything. As soon as the jail went down, the supervisors met with the legislators, and what did they talk about? Modifying our severity of our drug laws? No, they talked to them exclusively about mental health funding. That's all. So my point is that there are things that can be done that haven't been done. You know, Chief Hargadine could come out in public and explain and justify the 23% arrest rate for African Americans. I mean, we could have a discussion about this. It's just that nobody's gone and asked him to do it. And so I think these are things that we can do. I think we can do these things. And we can't just saying, oh, well, it's the law, we have to arrest all of these people, when there are these huge variations in how many it represents a kind of defeatism. I don't believe we can't make progress on this. It's sort of like gay marriage, which is just the most, things are always surprising in politics. All of these right-wing Democrats who are now endorsing gay marriage is becoming a consensus now. We may see the dam break on the war on drugs at some point. But you know, we won't see it happen unless we get out there and try. That's my only answer on that.
And Drew had a question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Drew Lake, I'm also a student. Professor Cox, I have a question for you. Do you believe that it is a human rights violation to ship our inmates to other counties?
A human rights violation? I think that sort of debases the term human rights. I mean, it's a major inconvenience. It's a human rights violation to put somebody in solitary confinement.
So it is or it is not?
It is not.
Okay.
But I don't believe it is, no.
But then you said it's inhumane to send it to our neighbors?
Well, I think it's something we shouldn't do. I think it's a major inconvenience, and it's worse than an inconvenience for some people.
So it's inhumane, but it's not a human rights violation?
No, I don't, I think to call it a human rights violation is ridiculous. But I do think it's something we should avoid doing. That's my
Okay,
answer.
I was just confused by your language.
Yeah, maybe I used the wrong word. I don't think we should try to avoid doing it. That's what I think.
I was first. I have a question for Nick. Nick hasn't gotten a question yet. What's the capital of Abyssinia? No, I've been to some of these separated criminal facilities, Cedar County, for instance. My sense is that they're all relatively new out on the periphery of the town, which is a huge problem in Iowa City for getting people who are defendants and defendants' families out to those places. We just don't have the public transportation that would be required to do that. It also causes a problem for the judges. So for instance, district court judges have original jurisdiction for both felonies and all civil cases. They would have to be in two places at once. District associate judges have responsibility for indictable misdemeanors and juvenile cases, so they'd have to be in two places. Magistrates have to do simple misdemeanors and small claims, so it doesn't seem manageable for judges. My question is, it doesn't seem manageable for lawyers. I go down to the courthouse and hang around and shoot the shit with lawyers 3 or 4 times a week. I have never heard a lawyer think that this is a good idea. Can you tell me any practicing lawyers that you've talked to that think this is a good idea?
I'm not free to tell you his name, but I received an email yesterday or the day before from a very prominent lawyer in town who thinks it's a terrific idea. And I've heard others support in general for it. Let me address the point you raised. You talk about the need for judges to be in two places at once. I don't think a judge is, I may be wrong, and you're on the ground, you understand how this works, and I am not, and I acknowledge that. But I've always assumed that a judge would not be sitting as judge simultaneously in 2 courtrooms, one of which is hearing a civil trial and another which is hearing a criminal trial at the same time.
Well, very little of a judge's work is done with trial. It's pretrial motions, arraignments, sentencings, probation revocations, all of those sort of things. And I've seen many, many civil cases where the judge says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have to take a short break, so we'll be coming back at 2 rather than at 1:30 because I have a sentencing I have to do at 1:30. Happens all the time.
Would it not, I mean, we should probably discuss this on our own time sometime, but would it not be possible for a judge to handle criminal cases for an entire day while another judge is handling civil matters for an entire day? Some would be motions, some would be trials, and so forth.
If you
I
have,
assume they have automobiles and that they probably drive to work, and I'm not talking about putting it 20 miles away, but like the county administration building. I'm sure there are lawyers who need to go from the courthouse to the county administration building.
no, all the county attorneys are in the courthouse.
Okay.
There are no lawyers in the administration building. And the thing about judges is that if you're in Chicago, you can have the criminal courts down on California Street and just have them, all those judges down there, and that's all they do. But here, you can't do that because they have original jurisdiction for both civil cases and felonies, and there is a new rule that is being promulgated by the Supreme Court as we speak, saying that in civil cases, it's one case, one judge, so the judge has it the whole time. So if he's on the criminal rotation and some hubbub comes up in the civil case, he needs to be available to have a hearing about that.
And you think walking or driving 5 blocks would be an impediment to that?
Yeah. Some, when it's not necessary.
How does it work in the other counties? Is there a groundswell of opposition by lawyers and judges?
I
To,
only know Cedar County, and Cedar County is really peculiar because they have part-time prosecutors and they don't have a public defender's office, so it doesn't.
I took a look at Google Earth of Jasper County today, and it's essentially exactly what I'm proposing. The courthouse, a nice courthouse like ours, is in the center of town, and the jail and law enforcement operation is on the edge. It's not way the hell out in the country, but it's also not right downtown where you're trying to bring people to entertainment venues and cafes and whatever.
I think that is a huge.
How would that have happened if there is this impossibility of doing it and opposition on the part of all these lawyers and judges? How did it ever get passed in Jasper County?
I don't know Jasper County.
I don't either.
If I can offer some context, Jasper County's population, if you look at it, is much more spread out. It's much more rural county than Johnson County, where most of the population is centered towards Iowa City. So if you look at just the transportation and the situation in different counties with regards to population, it would make more sense to put the building where the population can most access it. So in Johnson County, you have it in Iowa City and not closer to the periphery of Iowa City, where folks that they go out and they don't have their own car, they got to try to find public transportation. That's not, it's a different situation in Jackson County.
Maybe it would be a good idea to work with the city to get a bus route.
One bus route isn't gonna do it.
Jeff, back to the question of human rights. Do you think it's a human rights violation to provide less than half of the square footage for a prisoner to stay in the Johnson County Jail than is required by, the minimum amount required by state law?
I don't know. I very much doubt it. But I support building a new jail. I mean, I think we should expand our jail. So I think that we're violating people's human rights by arresting too many people. And even if they have nice facilities, to be under arrest is not a way of helping people. It's a way of hurting people.
Okay.
But as far as
I'll follow up with a question about that. You say that the supervisors, do you know for sure that no supervisor has gone and talked to the police chief about arrest policies in Iowa
I
City?
know that the police chief there's been no public discussion or debate or no public justification from the city or the police chief on the arrest rates and the incarceration rates. And by that, I mean in the press citizen, nothing.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's been nothing at any city council meeting.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
There has been.
Okay.
And the press citizen does a very poor job of reporting that. And I know for a fact that supervisors have met with the mayor, the city manager, and the police chief about these issues. And so, but the reality is that the Board of Supervisors has zero power to direct any police force to do anything, or any judge, any judicial part of the court system to do anything. So, that they can use a bully pulpit, and I believe that they have, and I believe they have on marijuana laws as well. Not as a body, but as individuals. So I guess my main question is, do you really think that if we don't build this jail, the arrest rate in Johnson County is going to go down?
No, but I think if we do build it, we'll go up.
I think you're wrong.
Well, this is verified. This is actually empirically verified. I think it's got a good chance to pass this time. I looked at election returns a lot, and if it passes, we'll see how many people, or see how many empty beds there are in 15 years.
Real quick question. I know there are people who have been in Guantanamo Bay for about 10 years without charge. And I recently heard that they have a soccer field and very ornate prayer rugs with an arrow on the floor that points them to Mecca. Do you think that because they have such nice facilities that their human rights are being maintained?
I really don't. We have, I know there have been attempts to maintain religious facilities for people
in our county jail,
There
although,
are zero, none, zero.
oh, well, there you are.
Because there's no space to
You're
have.
better off with prayer rooms.
Because there's no space to have.
I think they ought to be able to go to church.
Actually, First Baptist Church, there was a lady there in the 60s and 70s that held Bible study meetings every week at the jail because there was room. But there's no room for that now.
Yeah, these were voluntary, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I believe we're out of time. And I appreciate your patience with our setup. Thank you. And I want to thank the panel. I'm glad we were able to have a public forum and at least get some of our opposition and reasons for opposition against the jail. So thank you so much.